Welcome to the World of Horror podcast with Mom and Mac. This is the podcast where we share our love of international horror. But sometimes we get together with Stefan MacDonald and talk about some blind spots in our personal viewing histories. So yeah, WoHos and BSers, this is the first of what will become its own podcast called Blindspotting, where Stefan and I will choose a film we've always wanted to see, but has, for whatever reason, been a blind spot for us. So we hope you enjoy this. Get in touch, let us know. And until then, we hope you'll enjoy this special episode. Hi, Stefan. Welcome back to the World of Horror.
My pleasure to be here. I'm excited to talk about two movies.
Yay! Two 70s movies.
You couldn't say classics
Not
because there's a spoiler alert. One is not that great.
Well, when we get to it, maybe you can tell me what is the common thought on it.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah.
Cool.
But this one, the one that you chose, I had never heard of before. So what we're doing, WoHos, I was thinking about it today. I think we should call them BSers.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. So I'm a BSer myself.
Yeah, I've been known to BS in my time. But BSers, what we're doing is we are looking at films that are personal blind spots for us. Movies we may have heard about, never seen before, and just we're curious about for whatever reason. So I'm curious, Stefan, why did you choose Race with the Devil?
I've heard about it via a few podcasts, and I'd put it on one time and started it and got like 15 minutes into like the inciting incident where like they uncover this like cabal of people, which we'll get to in a bit. But for whatever reason, I stopped the movie and I didn't pick it up. And because we exist in like this like ethereal plane where streaming movies come and go and disappear, it disappeared from, I think it was on Shudder at the time in Canada, and then it was just gone. It's not on Tubi. You can rent it, or I think Shout Factory has it as a release, but with another film. Mm-hmm. I'm not crazy about that style of release, so I never like picked it up. Also, dropping $30 on a movie that you haven't seen is a gamble, and I've gambled a lot, and I didn't want to gamble again. No. So it just like sat there in the back of my mind as a movie that I wanted to watch because I did enjoy what I had seen. But I don't have a good explanation as to like why I just sat and I didn't watch it. But it's good because now we got to watch it and now we get to talk about it. So,
and I think one of us at least enjoyed it.
Did you not enjoy it?
I loved it.
Oh, okay, I loved it too. Yeah, I had such a great time. I loved any movie. I like a road movie because we talked about this at a time, but like cars are like a source of anxiety for me, and you had said they are for you as well. Oh, yeah. Because I'm like so ignorant of like how to maintain a car. Like, so my partner had car issues today, and then what I didn't tell you was my car entirely crapped out last week, so I don't even have a car anymore. Oh, I'm literally getting it junked. But essentially what happened was, do you want an explanation of my car breaking down? I think this is a good segue.
So what happened?
I was driving to the grocery store after going to the gym. So I was gross. I was sweaty. It's not a great time to be out in the world. But as I was pulling into a spot in the grocery store, basically when your car fishtails, the indicator for like poor traction came on. Mm-hmm. And I lost steering, and both the check engine light and the oil light came on. I still had like a little bit of like mobility, and I was like going, but it was like very like sluggish to move the vehicle. Yeah. Turned off the car, and I was like, oh, maybe just like something weird happened. So I went in and got my groceries to salt the wound of what is eventually going to happen. But I get back into my car afterwards, and I'm leaving, and it's basically this like little market square, and there's an apartment building adjacent to it. And I go around the apartment building and then go turn onto like the main road to start heading home. But as I like round the apartment building, the same thing happens, and I'm like able to thankfully like coast into like a parking spot. But my car was just like not having any of it. So I popped the hood, which took me a long time because I always keep forgetting how to actually do it on my car, which just shows you how little I know about vehicles. And I checked the dipstick, which is really not what you're supposed to do immediately, because I then learned that checking it while it's hot, obviously, it raises the level of the oil. So if you do have low oil, you're not checking it appropriately. But I thought it was fine. So I called my mechanic and called the garage or the towing service they recommended, because I don't know if it's like this in the States, but here it is like mob style warring between tow trucks. Does that exist where you live at all, or no?
Maybe in some places, but whenever I've had trouble, I just call AAA, and
Yeah.
then they just send somebody. I don't know how they
Yeah.
decide.
We have CAA, but it's weird. On highways, they're not allowed to pick you up. Like there's a approved towing service. Like somebody gets the contract for it, I think is the way that it works. But there are like people have like tow truck drivers have shot at one another in Canada. Like it's wild.
Wow.
In the urban centers, like there's different companies that are like it's like literally like carving up territory like a drug empire. Like it's so interesting. I wanted to make a thriller about it, but I don't think there's enough common knowledge of like how sometimes some tow truck companies operate. I don't think that it might just be like a Canadian thing. I don't know if it's like a US thing at all.
But that would be okay.
But anyways,
I mean,
yeah,
we don't need to know. That would be like a special layer of knowledge for Canadians. But
yeah, I mentioned it to my friend because Eric, who he's in my movies. His dad owns a trucking company, so like a tow truck. He does like heavy vehicle rescue. So if some beer truck or something, or some kind of transport truck falls over and is like hanging off a overpass, he's the person who comes and tries to fix the situation, which is wild. But anyways, so I called the tow truck company and it got taken away. And I was like, this is the best. Like I didn't get hurt, which is, the best part about it. And I was able to like coast into a parking spot, which if I was on a highway, it would have been like an absolute nightmare. So it was the best like situation for it to happen. So ultimately I'm not that upset. It kind of sucks to not have a car anymore. I'm still kind of like getting used to it. Like we're going to essentially save for like a new vehicle, and I'm going to inherit my partner's old vehicle because she's the one who actually uses it for commuting to work, and I just work from home. So it's like unreasonable for me to like I'll always be the recipient of the shit vehicle. That's the way it's going to be. But basically the main seal of the car went, and like the oil was horrifically low, and the cost of fixing all of that, along with like a few other pieces that are like aging in the vehicle, it's just like not worth the cost of the vehicle, which has like 310 kilometers on it. Like it's just, it's done. So, I relate a lot to like road movies because I immediately feel the anxiety that I had in that moment. Like it's always in the back of my mind if I break down, like, how do I handle this situation? Because it's an atypical situation. And as somebody who's an introvert, having to like deal with like a towing company or like mechanics and there's obviously like, I don't know if this is like an unfair characterization, but a lot of people try to take advantage of their customers in those fields. Yes. That might be a mean thing to say, but
probably accurate.
Yeah, probably accurate.
Because
sadly.
I feel like a lot of people are like that. I'm certainly like that. And I was just talking to somebody else today. Same, I have something going on with my car too. And I'm just like, when you go into these situations, if you're a woman, it's really not great.
Yeah, it's much worse. Which, by the way, this movie also does like a good job of like a lot of the when the inciting incident occurs. Not to like jump ahead, but like the women are like the object of like the voyeurism primarily in this movie, which is like I think very, very smart and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I agree. Yeah. It's a very interesting film in a lot of ways, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
should we jump into the gist of this movie so people aren't like,
Yeah.
what is this Race with the Devil film? The canes are waving.
What what happens in a general way in Race with the Devil?
We have two central characters, Robert Marsh and Frank Stewart. To me, it's unclear. Like when I was looking up the plot, they're like they own a motocross, like they sell motocross bikes to customers. But I feel like Peter Fonda's character, who's initially introduced racing the bike around and trying to like beat time or like beat a personal best with the bike, he must be like a professional racer as well to a certain extent. I feel like he's trying to like create a bike that will allow him to be a more successful beat his lap time, essentially be more successful at beating his lap time. So I don't mind that they don't explain that. I just think it's like kind of interesting to like, what exactly are they doing here?
Yeah.
But that's how we meet those two characters.
Yeah, I was a little confused too. I don't think ultimately it matters, but I didn't know if they were partners or like if there was a power differential between the two men or. But.
Well, so Warren Oates' character is definitely like the money behind it. It seems, or like the bigger brains, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then Peter Fonda is more of the like the slick, like which is odd because he doesn't look like a slick guy.
No.
He's kind of like he's got like a bit of like a nerdly, he's kind of lanky. He's not like the most attractive guy in the world. Warren Oates certainly isn't either. I'm not saying he is, but he definitely has like a more like, he feels like maybe like a touch older, but it's clear that they're like really, really good friends.
Yeah.
And Warren Oates' character has purchased like a brand new RV, and the idea is that they're going to abscond with their two partners. Oh my God, I'm blanking on their names.
Kelly and Ellis.
And that's Loretta Swit and Laura Parker. Cool. So they're going to go off to Aspen for like a skiing adventure or a ski trip, not an adventure. Any vacation for me would be an adventure at this point. But unfortunately, en route, when they stop for like a little motocross action and just like have a day of rest, the evening, Warren Oates and Peter Fonda's characters see a group of robed people around a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to describe what they're doing?
They're just having a cookout, I think. They have some weenies.
Just some nice folks. Yeah. There's definitely some weenies.
They're sacrificing a young woman, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's they're not having a cookout.
Put it bluntly, yeah.
I really enjoy this scene because it starts with them being like, what are these idiots doing?
Yeah.
And then it becomes lecherous when they see that like women disrobe and they're like, ooh, look what's going on here. And they're like exchanging the binoculars, being a bunch of creeps.
Yeah.
And then when it goes south, so the scene plays like quite interestingly. Like the audience knows it's Race with the Devil. This is clearly a like, oh, the robed people are Satanists. We know. But if you can like truly like dive into like the characters and like experience it as they're experiencing it, it's quite interesting to kind of like see the layers of interest of the scene for them.
Yeah. I liked it. It seemed very real. Seemed like it could actually happen.
Unfortunately, one of the partners comes out and is like, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" And then thus alerting the gang of Satanists engaging in their black mass or whatever it is, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking, I just saw Longlegs last night.
How is it?
I enjoyed it a lot, but it's like heavy into satanic panic.
Okay.
This isn't a spoiler or anything at all, but you get like Nicolas Cage saying "Hail Satan," and it's like A+.
Okay. It's
so good.
Yeah. I'm trying not to, hear anything about it. Spoilery. And I did hear that somebody didn't like it. The tone shifted, they said, a lot when Cage came on the scene.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I'd want to talk about it with you once you've seen it,
Okay.
because my explanations are all, I think, require some kind of like explanation of plot and details. So
Have you
just
seen?
go in and experience it.
I will. Have you seen
Yeah.
Maxine?
I did. I saw it opening night. The theater was giving out these wonderful lobby cards that are like headshots,
Oh, nice.
and have her like phone number, and on the back has a bunch of details on it. It looks like this. Here you go. This is what it looks like.
Oh, very nice. Oh,
It's very, very funny.
I'm jealous. Yeah, that's awesome.
I enjoyed it. I don't think it's the weakest of the bunch, but what I will say is that I think it shows like such a skill to make three different movies that feel all part and parcel. Essentially, like they all belong together, but are like three wildly distinct movies. You have like a character study of like the like the woman who's losing her mind type of film, and like with like Pearl. You have the like exploitation 70s slasher, and then you have kind of like the, I guess like the, also exploitative like kind of like gritty New York, but it's LA, like thriller movie, like Sleaze.
Yeah.
But they all work together. And have you seen Maxine?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. So I think my major issue with the movie is that you basically get her getting landing the role, and the things that start to like impact on her life. Basically, her past is like from the events of X are rearing their head during her hiring in this new role. I don't think there's enough time spent in the role watching her descend into like basically getting her back up to the wall, like losing her role and like exploring her acting in this role as she's like losing it. I think would have been a way more successful film. And it's basically she gets the role, two things happen, and the director's like, go take care of this so you can get your head in the game. And that structurally to me is like, I don't care. I will defend the third act because a lot of people are not liking it, and I think it is like wonderful.
I think it's great. I'm with you. Yeah. Mac didn't like it. He said it was a tonal shift, and that the actor was too big and all this. But he missed an important scene. I missed an important scene, so I definitely want to see it again. All the way through. So
yeah, I had man, it's I ended up cutting it out of our last episode that we recorded for Drag Mitch to Hell, but in it, I start the episode with, if you were a beanie in the summer, get fucked. And the reason I said that is because I cut everything out, because we'll talk about it when we do A Little Hell. So like, why, say it twice essentially on a podcast. But there's somebody sat in front of me who was very, very tall, and on their head, like literally just like here, sat a beanie that went like bloop. And I'm like, I can't see like so much of the screen. It was packed and I couldn't go elsewhere. And I was like, man, just like have some, self-awareness that what you choose to wear ultimately can impact other people. Like, nobody's wearing like the Pharrell fucking flat brimmed cap with the big thing to go see a movie, because obviously that's going to impact somebody else's viewing experience. Anyways, that was a bit distracting for me, like to the point where I'd like to see it again. And then Anna was, because Anna's on call, my partner's on call for I think basically a month at a time. So it's like hard for us to go see stuff frequently, but she ended up getting called twice during it. And for me, like focusing on a movie in the theater is like difficult, because I'm just like, if somebody moves, my attention is like, who's moving? Totally. So it's hard for me to watch something, but
yeah. And then over this last weekend, I was with both my sons and my sister, and my older son and my sister had not seen X. And so we watched it, and boy, was it fun to watch it with people who had never seen it before.
Did they like it?
Yeah, actually my sister had seen Pearl, and she didn't realize that X went along with Pearl. She just watched Pearl by itself.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I for me, Maxine is still like a positive review.
Yeah.
For me, it's like a 3.5. Yeah,
Yeah, I liked it. All
I'll
the
watch it again.
performances were good. The kills were
Yeah.
good. Mia Goth was great again. You know, so I'm a Ty West fan. So
Yeah, I still haven't seen. He had a movie called The Roost, which I haven't seen
oh, I
before.
don't think I've seen that either.
But I'd like to. But like when The House of the Devil came out, like I was a huge fan.
Yeah.
So I would definitely like to, check out his like. Sorry, I was checking. I was keyed up to like what he was going to be doing next. I really like The Innkeepers a lot. I know that some people don't like that; they find it too quiet. But I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I saw The Sacrament when it played TIFF the whatever year it was in festivals, and I love found footage movies like a lot. So I was a big fan of that. And then I'm trying to think I also saw In a Valley of Violence.
No, I didn't.
Wait. Is that what it's called? In a Valley of Violence, I think. It's this Western movie with Ethan Hawke.
Oh, okay.
Where essentially his dog gets killed, and it's like a John Wick but Western kind of, I guess. But like way ahead of John Wick, I believe.
Wow.
So I'm not confusing my ears.
Okay.
But it has John Travolta as a villain, and it's very wonderful.
What did you say it was called?
I think it's In a Valley of Violence.
Okay.
But I'm like, there's also In a Violent Nature, and then there's A History of Violence. There's a lot of like bland kind of titles that are like melding together in my mind currently.
Did you see In a Violent Nature?
Yes.
Did you like it? I didn't see it.
I did. Oh, I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I was going to say I didn't like it, but it was fine.
Oh, yeah. Chrissy Champagne didn't like it. She went on a rant on my Instagram, so she really didn't like it. But I haven't seen it, so I have no idea.
So, do you know the conceit for it?
Mm-mm.
I'm not giving anything away. It's like pretty clear from everything about it, but it's like a slasher from the perspective of a slasher. But it doesn't respect its own. It doesn't play by its own rules. So,
so maybe
I don't want to say more because, like, I assume you want to see it.
Yeah, I do, but I'll wait and I won't rush out and see that one.
Yeah, I'm like excited because it's like another Ontario film, like where I live, filmmaker who's made something that's for very little money and is getting it in theaters. But the funny good moments of it are like are a bit overshadowed by like some of the blander moments in the movie. I don't know how to talk about it as vaguely as possible.
That's good.
Okay, cool. I want to say so much, but I can't.
Well, maybe I will see it. I have that Regal, unlimited thing. So as long as it's in a Regal theater, I can see it. Anything.
I mean, it must be coming to streaming soon, like because it is Shudder bought it, so it's going to be on Shudder at some point soon.
Yeah. All right.
So we where did we leave off? We left off with them running away in their RV. Like they literally just don't even clean up. They have like the canopy with like an outdoor patio set outside.
Yep.
They just tear off because the occultists are running across like a field towards them, and they cross the ravine and their RV gets caught, but they manage to like get it out just as like a few of the occultists smash the back window and one climbs on the front, but they still manage to get away and they escape to a small town. And that's where like it gets really interesting for me because they've escaped the occultists, but they're all like pretty nondescript. There's no like visual. There's very little faces shown of the occultists, so you don't really know who was participating, and the way that they shot it, kind of like because a lot of them are robed. Their faces are hidden, so essentially anybody could potentially in this town be an occultist, and that's the rest of the movie is basically like anybody you're interacting with. Are they one of them? Is what this movie chooses to do, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, I do too. I love that. That is so paranoid, and the people in the town don't really do anything.
Yeah,
they stare.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, there's nothing that they do overtly. So you could just be imagining it,
Yeah.
or it could be something.
Of course, because like ultimately they are like quote unquote city folk in like a small town. So people are gonna look at them regardless because, oh, we know everybody in our town. You're not one of them. So what's your deal? Kind of. Yeah. So it's like it's very, very smart. And they basically uh, go off to the police and report what they saw because somebody has been murdered. Like a woman had her throat slit. So, it would be good to find her body and then hold people responsible, as you should do. The police tell them to join them in back at the site that they've described in order to find some kind of remnants of the scene. The two wives ended up staying back. I don't know any of the characters' names. I'm so bad.
That's okay.
It's Roger and Frank, and then
I guess Kelly and Alice, and I just
Kelly
know
and
that
Alice.
from the trivia. So Kelly and Alice, but I don't know which one's which.
Yeah, this will look quite similar too, which like makes it. I know they're not exactly the same, but like they, it's hard to discern at times. But interestingly, like this isn't ultimately about like the individual characters. They really treat it as just like here's a group of people in the situation. Nobody's like better suited than one another to like figure this out. They feel like they're all on an equal playing field of ineptitude in dealing with the situation, which I think is so good.
Me too. Yeah. I like it.
But they go back to the scene, and something that rubs Peter Fonda's character the wrong way is that while they've described where the scene is, they didn't really tell them where to go, and the sheriff knows where to go.
Yeah.
So like, oh, one of the Satanists potentially, question mark. He's also very dismissive of like, he's like, there's blood on the ground. They're like, well, we got to test it and find out. Like very like, we'll see when we see, essentially. Meanwhile, Ellis, and this is how bad my brain is. I know Ellis. Is it Wendy? Kelly. I know the dog is Ginger because that's very important to me.
That is very important.
Very important to me because it's a Shih Tzu or a Lhasa Apso, and I have like a Shih Poo myself. A huge red flag. The dog dies, and it's very sad for viewers. If you're a hard out on dog death, this will not be for you.
Yes.
They also talk about cats being murdered. The sheriff, when he's talking about previous experiences with people who he said were hippies and just doing like stuff up their nose and smoking grass and shooting up their arms. Yeah. And when he's like, these weren't hippies, he's like, doesn't matter. Like it feels like such a the conservative small town of like, yeah, it's all the same. Yeah. We've created an artificial boogeyman, and we're going to heap everything we don't like onto this one, like, social class or whatever, or cultural class. It's very, very funny. What I love about this movie is that it they don't rush through stuff.
No.
This like the scene where they find the Satanist is quite long, and while they're watching them, and then the scene of driving out to the location where they had seen the Satanist is also quite long. And then when Wendy and Ellis,
Kelly,
I got it. I'm going to try to maintain this level of knowledge and not lose it. But they find a letter that's been kind of like jammed through some of the broken glass of the broken window of the RV, warning them to not go to the police or just to tell anybody. Otherwise, they'll be smited. I can't remember the exact, or smot, smotted. I can't remember what the letter says, but it's quite enjoyable. But they do, because it says, or makes reference to runes and then has a series of symbols on it. They decide to go to the library, and there's like a fun library scene of them like looking up occult books, which I thought was nice.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's just like such a fun movie of again, it's like a road movie, so it's a bunch of like vignettes, like small scenes, like bringing us up to the namesake, the race with the devil, which does happen. You get a wonderful chase in this movie that seems to go on, like it's so they can't escape what they found themselves in, and it's so like oppressive and wonderful. I know wonderful and oppressive aren't two words that should really go together, but in the context of this movie, for me, it is.
You know what the ending's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
So it's no surprise. I know some people complained it was a little abrupt. I didn't think so.
No, not at all. I was down. Yeah.
Do you want to... So the race scene, is there anything...
Yeah, so there's basically when the husbands and wives get back together, they're at like an RV, or they go to an RV park. They meet somebody, they go to a bar, so they've left the RV, they come back and the dog has been killed, sadly. Right. But then they also find that there's rattlesnakes inside the people have thrown rattlesnakes into like the RV. The bikes that have been on the back, their motocross bikes, have been destroyed. And while they're able to like get rid of the like rattlesnakes, as they drive off, it's like, I think it's like either Wendy or Alice says, well, what else did they do? Mm-hmm. While nothing like really happens, it creates so much tension while they're like leaving the scene. Yeah. That is like so interesting. Yeah. Man, there's so many like wonderful lines of dialogue. Like, also, not to jump back, when the sheriff says like, "Oh, we saw somebody like killing a bunch of Satanists skinning cats or whatever," and then Warren Oates' character is like, "This wasn't a cat." This was a woman who's like, I guess they ran out of cats, is what the sheriff offers. There's like so many like funny lines of dialogue in this, or like that just like let a lot hang.
Stefan, just something occurred to me. Have you ever had a break-in?
No, but I'm like intensely paranoid of it. Yeah.
I've never had a break into my house, but I've had a break into my car, and it's just such a feeling. Such a violation. And so that feeling that the women have, just like, what's next? What have they left for us, or what have they done to the vehicle?
Yeah. So I've had two things happen that are like odd. We live in like a pretty rough area of Hamilton. The whole city is like a little bit more blue collar. It looks rougher than it is. Like, it's very much like a kind of like a Detroit, maybe like Buffalo or something like that kind of vibe to where I live. But like, I've like largely felt safe, but there have been like a few things that have happened that have like threatened that kind of like feeling. One was, this is just like a really, really odd thing. This wasn't like a scary thing that occurred, but somebody, when we had moved into our house, knocked on our back door and said, like really aggressively. I think like we had just moved in, so I think we drank a lot the night before, and I was like kind of hungover. Yeah. So I went to the back door, and there's like some woman there. I'm like, how did you get back here? There's like a gate on either entrance. I'm like, you would have had to really tried to come to like the back door. She's like, oh, I'm here to see the person in the basement. And I was like, yeah, my basement is unfinished. I've used it in horror movies that I've made. Like, it's creepy. Yeah, I have a creepy basement. I've used it. It's the basement of the feature film. It's haunted. It's haunted for sure. For sure, it's haunted.
If it wasn't before, it is now.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, eventually, like, they left, but they like went like an odd way. And I was like so confused by the interaction to the point where I optioned a script a little while ago, and it's based off of that as a jumping off point, where essentially a main character is like living in a house that they've newly moved into, and all of a sudden random people keep knocking on their door asking to see the person in the basement, and then that's the jumping off point for it. Yeah. Sadly, Telefilm did not want to fund it as a project, but
loss.
Yeah, it's still sitting, and one day, because I wrote it for somebody else, I'd like to rewrite it for myself and make changes that I would want to do. But we'll see. It'd be a nice cheap movie to make. The second thing that was more disconcerting was we have like a very one of our gates is like quite sticky. It's like it's like an old metal gate that just by virtue of time has like the latch is hard to take off. It's hard to you got to really force multiple things to get it to close properly. And one day it was open and there was like a trail of blood from the entry point to the back, our back gate.
No, I don't like that at all.
Yeah. So I have another idea that for just a short that I'm going to do, using that as a jumping off point.
That's a good one.
So yeah, but it made me feel uncomfortable because even though it's an exterior space, the way that capitalism works says that we have our allotted properties that we pay for. Therefore, even if it's external, it's perceived as our space. So it made me feel a little bit odd. I recently got ring cams because I'm a petty motherfucker, and somebody put their household garbage loosely into our garbage, and that's why I got a ring cam.
Wow,
I'm gonna find out who the fuck did it, because otherwise it is so petty. I gotta find it. I'm just gonna dump it on their lawn.
One time I had some garbage in my car, just little pieces of garbage, and I wanted to put it in Quinn's garbage can, and she was really resistant. And I was like, "It's garbage," and I forced her to allow me to do that, but
in my defense, actually, my partner's the one who had to deal with it because she was leaving for work, and the people are going to pick up our garbage, and ultimately, they really they let people know if you fuck up. They put tags on your garbage if you've fucked up.
Yeah.
So they put literally loose garbage on top of our meat wrappers and stuff like that. It's not just if somebody opened up our bag and put something in, I don't care.
Yeah.
But also if you're throwing recycling and stuff in, make sure it's the appropriate place. It was all over the place, and I'm you have your own garbage and recycling.
Yeah.
Just do it, man. Part of me was oh, maybe it's an unhoused person that. I understand, but my partner was no, there's raw meat wrappers thrown on top of our garbage. I was and just tahinis, which is I don't know if you got that in the States.
What is it?
It's a Greek food place. A chain.
I don't think so.
So there's stuff from that. It's just oh man, it was just irritating. So anyways, that's the origin of my ring cams that I recently got, which also intruded upon us talking.
It's fine.
You also found out how petty I am.
Well, no, I thought you were pettier than you actually are, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You sold me.
Good. But yeah, then there's a race with the devil. Then it ends with them thinking they've escaped, pulling off because both of their headlights are non-functioning, so they can't drive at night. And then they find themselves encircled by Satanists as they light a flame that encircles the RV. And it's a great shot.
It is good.
I love it.
It is so good.
Yeah, I don't mind that it's abrupt. My own movie has a very abrupt ending, I think. I feel a lot happens in a very
a lot happens with the right
it's the last 8 minutes is everything.
Yeah.
I
do need to talk to you about your film when it's when it's out there.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Yes,
hopefully soon. Should
we talk Jaws 2?
Let's do it.
Or do you have something else? Am I jumping the gun?
No, that's fine. But I don't have. I am going to need to look up a summary of the film.
I think I could do it.
You probably could do it. I mean, I can't go blow by blow.
Oh, you don't have to. I don't I don't think you need to. I have a criminal need to ensure that everybody knows what's in my head.
Yeah.
So I often over-explain things.
Well, So I didn't have a really good reason for choosing this film, except that I had seen Jaws and I had never seen Jaws 2. And I, full disclosure, looked up a list of horror films that everyone should see, and this was on the list. And so I thought, well, you like shark films, and so I'll
Yeah,
check it out.
any animal destroying a person, I'm in.
Oh, okay. It doesn't
Mostly,
have to be
yeah.
a shark.
No. I'm a huge crocodile fan, so I'll watch like crocodile movies. Also down with alligators, but they're the less likely aggressive animals. So they're like rarely used. I feel like even there's like a bunch of like Italian films like The Great Alligator. There's like Sergio Martino made a few. I can't remember who else did. The Italian schlockmaster who did Cruel Jaws and has made like a slew of like ripoff. Bruno Mattei, I think, has an alligator movie as well. So I'm like not necessarily right in saying that crocodiles are more prevalent in movie stuff, but for me, those are the movies that I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Bears, down with bears.
Bears, yeah. Bears are good.
Snakes.
We just did a bear movie.
Backcountry? Did you do Backcountry?
No, we did Backcountry a long time ago. You and I did a bear movie recently.
Oh, of course, The Edge. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
All right, so the events of this movie pick up after the events of the last movie ended, which is a little strange because they blew up the shark in Jaws.
Yes.
And so this must mean there's another shark.
Yes. Another really big shark.
Yeah, really big shark.
Really big, with a vendetta.
Right. Yeah, must be. And again, nobody believes Ray Scheider. And we have the same mayor, which was kind of fun to see him again.
There's a ton of returning cast, which is great. Like Lauren Gray is in it again, or Lauren Gary, sorry, is in it again.
Yep. So, all right. So the first kill is of two scuba divers photographing the wreckage of the orca. And I don't know why, but the camera continues to flash and take photographs even as it's falling to the bottom of the ocean. But
I love the cold open of like, it's the divers investigating the wreck of the original ship from Jaws as a new shark is like becoming prevalent in the area and asserting itself with violent force over our two divers. I'm down. That's a good start to a movie.
I mean, let me just say, I didn't dislike this movie. I think I was looking at the stats for it, and there were about three or four editors, and they either needed one more or three fewer because the editing on this thing is I can't find where they edited. So, I mean, the kills are great.
Yeah.
So I just kept thinking, bring back the shark.
I think that they had an issue with this movie does have like a structural problem because we have like Chief Brody who now is like dealing with like his like PTSD with the previous events. And so you're wondering whether or not is this going to be a shark or is this him? Like we already as an audience member know it's a shark because there's an opening scene with it. But from his perspective, like he's questioning whether or not there is a shark or am I trying to like, deal with what happened to me in the original film. So this movie has like a more somber tone, which I think does it a disservice. Mm-hmm. Even there's stuff with his character that are like, it's kind of gross. Like he talks to his like wife in like a way that like is like not as nice as the first film. Like the first film feels sweeter, like the relationship. He also like whistles. There is like it's like a Miss Amity competition, and he like whistles at the winner, and it's like not meant to be like, oh, like a cute, like I don't know how you could make that a cute whistle, but it's like lecherous and weird and gross, and it like leaves a lot of like a sour taste in your mouth. This is like the introduction to a character that is like pretty beloved from the first film, and it just feels like, I assume a lot of the negative reaction is probably due to the fact that this movie is quite sad.
It is very sad. I mean, I don't know what the public would have thought of that, like, whistle in 1978, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, watching it and I'm like, that kid is at most 18.
Yeah, it's not good.
So it's not great. Yeah. And the wife kind of like, lightheartedly, hits her husband. Oh, you kind of thing. So I don't think it's that terrible culturally.
It feels gross. I watched it. I was like, oh, this is not great. It's like hard to imagine a time where that would have been appropriate.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm sad about that too.
Very sad.
All right. Well, I think then the next one, I'm just going to talk about the kills.
Yeah, no, for sure. Basically what happens is it's like very, very similar to the first film. And I was like thinking about, when we make remakes now or sequels to movies, it feels like there has to be like eight callbacks to the first film. And like, but I always thought of that as like being a recent phenomenon. This movie has so many callbacks to the first film in it that I'm like, that torpedoed my feeling that this was a recent phenomenon, and it's been occurring for, quite some years, time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could talk about those, but like some of them relate to kills. Like there's the scene where the lanky kid is like thrown from the boat, and his date is like dragged in the boat with the shark, and then has to swim back as the shark's coming towards him, and she's yelling like swim, like it feels very much like the dock scene from the first film in cadence. And then there's like a bunch of lines that are repurposed, and I was like, that doesn't work. Please don't do that. Make your own thing. And I don't know. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable.
And I had seen, I had just watched Jaws, right before this one, and so it was very obvious, and it was not artful at all.
No, I will say this movie does look nice in its defense. Yeah,
it does, and I mean there are some nice moments. The water skier death is quite nice, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Because she's very graceful, and it looks like so much fun, but then the music comes in, and so that she's not long for this world. And I've never water skied, but sometimes you just fall into the water. That's like not an uncommon thing that happens. But what's happened here is, of course, she's been taken down by this shark.
Yes. Mm-hmm. My partner made a joke. She watched the first half with me, and she's like, "That's why you always have a spotter."
Yeah.
Because obviously the driver can't be driving and looking back to make sure you haven't fallen off the line. But anyways, that's kind of like what happens. The driver like stops and like is looking for the water skier and can't find her. Yeah. And the shark, makes itself known and accidentally sets herself on fire.
Yeah, this is crazy. I didn't care for this one so much. But
I found it so affecting though as a kid when I saw it.
Oh, I
don't know why.
I can only imagine. I mean, it is very dramatic. And to think of the woman going out like that, I'm sure as a child that must have been pretty intense. But she just sort of slops gasoline all over this creature and herself in the process, and then hits the shark with a flare gun, flames from the flare gun, and it burns the shark quite badly, I think.
Yeah.
But she also catches on fire, and then the boat blows up.
Yeah. Much to the chagrin of the people on shore who were like, that's not right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are callbacks to other characters. like Matt Hooper, I think, was
Yeah.
a character in the first film.
Yeah, he's Richard Dreyfuss, who now has abhorrent politics, which he slings
Yes.
whenever he goes to speak at a movie screening, apparently. Unfortunate. Unfortunate even sounds like too light of a word to use to describe modern day Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah, he was so cute back in the day, but yeah, I guess he's pretty terrible. And
Yes.
I heard, now what was I listening to? It's going to be hard for me to track this back. Okay.
Because it was a little while ago. This was a few months ago, the recent.
But the details don't really matter. But somebody who was at that screening where people like walked out called in and like told his side of the story. And it was, it does sound like it was pretty bad. But what is kind of heartening is a lot of people did walk out in protest.
Yes. I remember, I'm sad it happened at the end, but I went to see Scanners in the theater for like an anniversary, and Stephen Lack was there. He's like the main actor. And he made like some like it was, I think, intended to be like flirtatious to like the female goers, and said, but like not like in a date rapey way at the end. And it was like, it made me so uncomfortable. I'm like, that ruined this, and you're probably a piece of shit. And then I just like left, and I was like, ugh, bummer. Yeah. Don't see actors that you like.
Dreyfuss. I know. That's what they say, right? But so there is the obligatory don't go out on the water
yes.
from the father. And of course, the 17-year-old doesn't listen. Now, here's one of the problems I had. I could not keep this kid's friends straight.
There are so many. They introduced a lot of like nothing characters.
Yeah.
There's the mayor's son, who's got the eyebrows. He's got real aggressive eyebrows. Like very, like they're not like comedically big, but they're like so defined and dark.
Yeah.
That I was like, I will always know who you are. There's the one friend who's like very nice to the Sean, the youngest Brody child. Yes. Who, when he's brought along for a because they get grounded and they can't take their boat out, they decide to like break that and just go out anyways because hormones, I guess, is like he's like largely interested in this new person in town, and wants to woo her while they're boating, I guess. But so there's her, then there's the cousin, which is the eldest Brody child is interested in. Yes. So I know those two, but there's two nerds.
Right. There's Keith.
That I find hard to keep track of.
There's Keith Gordon, right?
Yes, there's Keith Gordon
with the really lovely mutton chops. I enjoyed those a lot. And yeah, then his friend, I guess.
Yeah, and then there was the kind of like the Brody's friend who's like the comedic relief, but never really does much comedy in the movie, which is odd.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
That might be it.
Or there might be some peripheral.
So I had trouble, keeping all these people straight. And at one point, at the end of the movie, there's just one girl who's just crying and screaming.
Yeah, so she's the partner of the person who, remember the almost like the repeat of the dock incident. Oh no, she's found by Brody and taken away, so she's not there.
Oh. Sometimes I wonder if I have facial blindness a little bit. I
definitely have like a hard time discerning faces, which might explain why. If you ever listen to my podcast, I'm just like trying desperately to get names right, but it's a failure. I'm very situational context driven for movies.
I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. A bunch of kids go out on the water. At one point, they do kind of a clever thing where they get their three boats kind of like tied together. I did like that little bit of ingenuity.
Yeah, it looked like a Waterworld-esque vessel.
Yes.
Because they've all been destroyed at this point. The shark has destroyed them. Their only means of like being saved was a helicopter that was going to be like that was going to string them along, and then the helicopter gets destroyed by the shark as well. In a very like, it felt like Lake Placid was doing a little ode to it with Oliver Platt's scene.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
Which I love Lake Placid, huge fan.
Me too. Yeah. Actually, that's what we did with Backcountry. We paired those two, so we could have a Canadian international film and American film. Yeah.
Speaking of Backcountry, did you ever see the director? I think it's Andy MacDonald. I can't remember his first name. He did a movie called Pyewacket. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I liked it. I was trying to get Mac to watch it. He directed a bunch of that show. Slasher.
Yeah. Sorry, Slasher. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what else happens.
Brody ends up going out after them. There's like I mentioned that there's a lot of structural issues with this. Like largely, it feels rudderless almost because the town never buys into Chief Brody's claims. He's no longer chief, by the way. His badge is taken away after he fires off. Well, I guess like not exactly. He fires off some rounds at a beach when he thinks he sees a shark, but it's just a school of fish, gravitating towards shore. And then when he confronts like the like town board, the town trustees, they're basically deciding whether or not to like boot him. Mm-hmm. And he's presenting photos that had been recovered from the first wreck that he's like, this is a shark's eye in it. And he's not doing a good job of selling what he's pushing because he just looks unhinged.
Yes.
So they decided to can him. So he's no longer Chief Brody, but he manages to like convince his deputy, who's the same character from the first film. I do like what they did with his character because he's so dumb in the first movie. He's still dumb, but he's like a little bit better, as if like he's been imbued with some kind of like wisdom, Chief Brody wisdom. Like he's like taken him under his wing and like, this is how you be a cop, or like live in the world. So he's a little bit smarter, which I really, really enjoyed. I think that was one of the better parts of the film. But he goes with the deputy and his wife, whose name I can't remember for the life of me right now. But Mrs. Brody. We'll just go with that. The three of them take he basically convinces the deputy that we should just take the boat and go look for my son out in the water. And when they come across the lone woman who is like frightened to death after watching her like date, I guess they're not really kind of a date. I guess that was the discussion. I guess so we'll say a date. Her date was eaten by Jaws number 2, Jaws the second.
Yeah. And Mrs. Jaws, I think.
Mrs. Jaws. Yeah, of course. Could be Mrs. Jaws. So ultimately, Chief Brody like rings the horn when he sees like a fishing vessel out at water, and the idea is that their deputy, his wife, and the woman who's beside herself are going to go off with a shipping vessel or the fishing vessel, and he's going to continue off. And it's so funny. He's like, the deputy's like, oh, you go 10 knots, like he gives them like some kind of like boating terminology. It's like, I don't know what any of that means, just point. Which is insane because it's a flat horizon.
Right.
He can point, and ultimately in like, by virtue of the tides, you're going to end up somewhere else wildly different. I also didn't like that they like kind of removed the different personalities from the boat, so it turned into just Brody, going towards like the teenagers who are floating adrift while they're encircled by the shark. I thought that was kind of like, it's not the right move. I do think that they're probably trying to do something different from the first film, so it's not like Quint, Hooper, Brody on a ship, but just don't think it worked.
No, But one thing I did like, I don't know why I like this, but when Mike, he's like, basically I disobeyed you, and Sean's out on the water.
Yeah.
Brody doesn't freak out. I mean, he just jumps into action. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like that. Instead of like having a moment where he's like screaming at this kid, he's just like,
Yeah.
let's go fix it.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I understand. You're a teenager. You're going to not do what I tell you. It's fine. Like, I'm not going to be. It's the one moment where Chief Brody is like kind of not a dick in this movie.
Yeah. I know. Maybe that's why I like that moment.
Yeah. No, I think it was a really, really good moment. And then they basically head off to the barges that are floating adrift, the boats that are floating adrift that are tethered together. And we haven't really talked about it, but there was Chekhov's power cable that supplies all of Amity with power. It had previously been like picked up while the deputy was like dredging the water, but Chief Brody, when he's like trying to, I think, reel the kids in, also snares it, I think is how it goes. Then like smacks it to get the shark's attention, and the shark jumps up, bites it, and is electrocuted. It's quite a funny way to go.
Yeah, and that must have cost a lot of money because they show you from all these different angles,
Oh yeah,
and it looks pretty great. And there's like firecracker sounds going off, and it's really great.
Yeah, it's so odd, but I like it. It's a little bit silly. I do feel like this movie was reviled. Like, I think people really hated on it for a long time. I'm actually more familiar with Jaws 3, the one that has the SeaWorld crossover with Jaws. I watched that one a ton growing up. I don't know why, just did. But I'd seen this like a few times. And I do think that like it's a little bit better than people give it credit for. It's not a good movie though. I just think it's like well acted, harnesses like the memories of the characters from the first film, which is a big boost, I think, to this movie. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. It moves along pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's terrible. And I think if I had seen it at the right time, I'm sure, I would have liked it more. But I'm hoping the next Blind Spot is something I enjoy a little more than this one. But I do have a list of shark movies. I was wondering which ones of these you have seen, if you will indulge me.
Of course.
All right. Well, there are sequels to this one. Of course, there's Jaws 2, which we just talked about, Jaws 3D, and Jaws the Revenge. Have you seen all of them?
Yes. Jaws 3D has Dennis Quaid in it. It's very, very funny. It has the youngest Brody joining force. He's the eldest Brody, and then his younger brother's coming to visit him. It's bolstered by, again, like a lot of the relationships between the characters works quite well, but it's odd because it takes place in SeaWorld as a shark's like wreaking havoc in the park. I'm like, how did you get the branding for this? This is like not the cross promotional marketing you thought.
Right.
It's bananas. It has Louis Gossett Jr. as the head of the SeaWorld, like he's the operations manager. He does quite a good job. I like the third one. I think it's fun. It's a bad movie though.
And how about
but I love it.
The Revenge?
The Revenge is an atrocious movie.
Okay.
It's very, very bad. I think Michael Caine said he just wanted a paycheck when asked about doing it.
Fair enough, I think.
Yeah, it does have Lorraine Gary coming back though.
Oh.
Rory Schneider obviously never makes a repeat after this film. They, I think, unceremoniously say in the third film that he had a heart attack because of the events of the first and the second film.
Oh, okay. So he's donezo.
Yeah.
How about?
Then of course he's passed away too. R.I.P.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Like how many people? Actually, the youngest kid actor, man.
Yeah.
Who's like my age, would have been my age, is also with us anymore.
Yeah.
All right. How about Orca from 1977?
I've seen Orca.
Okay.
It has a good end set piece where there's the Orca breaking through. They're like, I don't like it's not a glacier, but it's like an ice float, I guess. I don't know what the technical term for that would be, but it's like it's impressive looking. Like, it looks cool.
Okay.
The movie I thought was just like, meh.
How about Piranha from 1978?
I enjoy Piranha.
Okay.
I enjoy Piranha 2 as well.
How about Tentacles from 77?
I have not seen Tentacles.
How about Killer Fish from 79?
No.
Barracuda from 78.
I've never seen Barracuda either.
Tintorera Killer Shark.
Oh, I think Tintorera has some nasty history behind it.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
Unless I'm mistaken. I don't want to besmirch the good name of Tintorera, which is, I think it's the Tiger Shark movie.
Killer Shark, yeah. Well, the title's Tintorera Killer Shark.
So I think Tintorera means Tiger Shark, doesn't it? Isn't that the translation? I have no idea.
I don't know. How about Blood Beach?
I've not seen Blood Beach.
That sounds like a great title. I mean, that's a
great title.
The Spawning.
The Spawning, no.
Okay. The Last Shark, 1981.
No.
Up from the Last Run, 1979.
I've never even heard of that one. A lot of these I've heard of before.
Humanoids from the Deep.
Yes.
You must have. Okay.
Of course.
That sounds like a Stefan movie to me.
Yeah.
The Island of the Fishmen.
No. So I think that is where I would draw, like, for me, it has, like, I like an actual animal that exists in reality.
Okay.
Attacking people. The fishman
Yeah,
attacking.
Fishman. Yeah.
I'm a little bit less interested in, unless it's like actually a really good movie, in which case I'm down.
So how about Devilfish from 1984?
Aware of it, but have not seen it.
And Mako, The Jaws of Death.
I've seen Mako, The Jaws of Death. I think
All right.
maybe Mako, The Jaws of Death is the... Here, you can cut this out. Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it. I know that there's like some... Like, either maybe like a stunt person died while making one of them, or one involves like the actual killing of like a shark on film. It's almost like that cannibal movie, Cannibal Holocaust, where they like actually kill like a monkey and a hard-shelled tortoise.
Is that why people have mixed feelings about that film?
Yeah, they kill like actual animals in it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, and it's like quite gratuitous.
Didn't every Jalo movie do that though? I mean, I don't think. I mean, it's not nice, but
yeah. I think they like it, the turtle thing was like very gross.
Okay.
It's like a snapping turtle, so it's like quite large. I think they skin its like shell off in it. Like it's like
Okay. I have not.
It's quite gross.
Watched that one.
Yeah.
Well, Stefan, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For having this conversation with me about these films. Do we want to make our brave new announcement now?
I think so.
Okay.
This is our first. So we're going to talk about some scheduling stuff, and we can just do it on the show, and that's fine. But why don't you announce what it is, and then I'll ask the question.
Well, we really hope you've enjoyed this show, and if you have, stay tuned, because World of Horror is spinning off and joining forces with Drag Mitch to Hell, and we are going to be Blindspotting.
We're going to be looking at, I assume we want to keep this format of two movies.
I think so.
One movie that one of us has not seen. So I could pick a movie that I haven't seen that you could have seen.
Yes, I think that is allowed in the rules.
And then because by virtue of its structure, I think we would have to eliminate any movies that exist within the calendar year. So it would have to be from like at least, the prior year, or even 2 years, I think, because like it has to like really become like a blind spot. Like, oh, I missed this movie, and not like a movie that like, oh, it's time to do like the best of the year and I'm watching a bunch of movies or something to that effect. I think there has to be like a little bit of time removed, but still have some contemporary stuff in the mix. I think is kind of like how I feel.
And similar to your podcast, Stefan, these will not just be horror films or international horror films, but just any films that we have missed along the way.
Yes. I will not watch any musicals.
You really won't?
So I need to explain my position because I think a lot of people hate musicals because they're like perceived to be like it's for like almost like homophobic reasons. Like they're just like, oh, that is like,
I didn't think that was
insert slur or whatever. They're like it's not like a manly thing to like watch. I need to be clear that like when I watch a musical, I think it comes from like largely I hate the music in the musicals mostly. So I don't like that. Yeah. I think one of the recent examples of me actually liking it was Anna and the Apocalypse. I really, really liked. I thought the music was great in it. Yeah. And then when people break it into song, it makes me like, I feel like I'm getting like secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just like, oh, please just stop it. Like, it gives me like I just cringe. I don't like it.
Fair enough.
It's like not a fun experience for me, but I would still do like one. But you gotta give me like one every year or two.
One a year. I think that's fair.
All right.
So like my beef refuses to watch animated films, which I think is just absurd. But you have to respect people's preferences, I guess.
So you said you don't like animated films.
I love animated films, but my beef refuses to watch it.
Okay. I get it now.
That's upsetting to me, especially because Paddington 2 is one of my all-time favorite films. But
everybody loves Paddington 2, but guess what? It's a blind spot for me.
It's a blind spot. Okay, good. Well,
so that could be added to the list. And I've heard like such great things about it.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. So my question was, so this is going to be a monthly thing. Mm-hmm. So do we want to do like, in terms of scheduling, we drop an episode on the first Monday of the month, or should it just be the first of the month? For me, first Monday makes more sense because if the first lands on like a Saturday, I think that's going to impact the uptake of an episode.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed with our show is that even if I don't release a show on Friday, people download shows on Friday. Yeah. So I think if we train them on, the first Monday.
Train them.
I mean, I don't know what the right word is, but then that would be better. They'll know what to expect. So I think that's good. Do we want to have themes or just like free for all in terms of like blind spots?
So I was thinking that we could take movies and then link them via a very, very funny thing.
Okay.
Like you know how sometimes people have like funny like letterboxed like lists of like movies where the father does XYZ and then this person dies and it has like like Cannibal Holocaust and Freaky Friday together as like a movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that as like a real thing. I'm just like as an example, like linking two things via maybe like an interesting angle would be kind of fun.
So BSers, I hope you will forgive the sort of fade out there. I didn't want to subject you to all the gory details, but rest assured we are making plans for our next blind spotting, the first blind spotting episode proper, coming up very soon. So thank you so much for your support. As always, get in touch with any questions, comments, concerns, addendums, retractions, what have you. Love you.